Hi, my name's Phil. I like to come out politics. So Nigel Farage is probably delighted that everyone is talking about Chinese espionage to take the heat off questions over Russian bribery. But Labour had other plans yesterday and hopefully it will continue, especially now that Farage has had to U-turn and admit that he did know who Nathan Gill was after all. Up until very recently, Labour's strategy has appeared to be one of incredibly vague statements on Reform UK's extreme behaviour in order to avoid annoying their common voters, I guess. But for whatever reason, this calculation has changed and the Labour leadership have now decided to go after Farage on the threat he poses the UK. It was welcome when it occurred, but was it just something to get through the conference or did it have legs? Well, there have been some other big shifts and one of them was on show in PMQs yesterday. But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So I will never not talk about the questions Nigel Farage faces over Russian bribery until he answers them with credible responses. And it looks like Labour at least are going to ask those questions, even if much of the media won't. Don't get your hopes up though, there's still the small matter of Labour being really bad at getting messages to the public. Still, as long as they're going to ask more of the right questions, there is hope. And in yesterday's PMQs, a Labour backbencher asked a question which was clearly planted by the whips to not only brighten the spotlight on Russian bribery in Reform UK, a fact which is now proven, but to publicise Labour's legislation designed to hamper foreign interference in our politics.
Can the Prime Minister update the House on the government's elections bill? And does he agree that in light of recent court cases and the conviction of Reform's former leader in Wales, that no party whose leaders take Russian bribes can be trusted to defend our democracy?
Mr. Speaker, Labour is introducing an elections bill to protect our democracy from foreign interference. But look at Reform. The member for Clapton and his deputy worked alongside someone who took money to spread Putin's propaganda. Whatever their denials, they have serious questions to answer about what they knew. But that is the choice. Kremlin cronies sowing division or Labour patriots working for national renewal.
And this is the type of message I've talked about in the past. You twin negative attacks with positive action. This is the ideal sort of attack line against Farage. See, why aren't you answering questions about Russian bribery, Nigel? Oh, by the way, we're going to make it way harder to get foreign money into our politics. The elections bill is not likely to be the most exciting legislation for voters, let's be honest. But if you tie it to Russian skullduggery and Nigel Farage, well, then it can become clickbait worthy, which is how you get things to go public these days. And this is a genuinely important issue to raise, as the collapse of the China spy case shows even being in Parliament is a national security risk. But Farage also wants to be Prime Minister. And on the evidence of current polling, it is entirely possible that he could be. So the public, as well as other MPs, have the right to know if he's in the pocket of a foreign dictator known to have malicious intent towards us. Frankly, I cannot for the life of me work out why the Tories are not also pushing this, perhaps because Badenoch's idea of opposition is just to be a contrarian on everything the government does, even if it means turning down easy ways to attack the main source of her hemorrhaging votes. But this isn't just a political attack. What is Farage's involvement? As I've said before, if the Russians targeted Nathan Gill, they will almost certainly have approached others in Farage's posse of MEPs. Some of them are still in Reform UK now. Why, on learning about this breach, has he not ordered an investigation? It is also inconceivable that the Russians would not have targeted Farage personally as well. He was giving the same sort of pro-Russian statements that Gill has now admitted making for rubles. And Farage was working for Russia today, the Kremlin's most open way of recruiting useful idiots in the West. And after a week of getting his mates to deny Farage even knew Nathan Gill, the situation became so untenable that he's now had to admit, I knew him after all. Farage has been incredibly evasive over this issue and it needs pushing and pushing and pushing. And with that, I'll leave you with the results of my insomnia from last night.
Oh, gather round, me friends, and I'll tell you a tale of a patriot stout who was hearty and hale. He'd fight for our borders, our flag and our beer, but when certain names came up, he'd soon disappear. And it's no, nay, never, no, nay, never, no more will I answer that question upon this here floor. I talk about fish or the oldie you wore, but what I knew about Nathan, no, never, no more. He was up on the telly for his weekly review. The host tried to ask him as interviewers do. Now Nigel, she said with a look in her eye, about Russian money and your good friend that guy. And it's no, nay, never, no, nay, never, no more will I answer that question upon this here floor. I'll talk about fish or the oldie you wore, but what I knew about Nathan, no, never, no more. He puffed out his cheeks and he reached for his beer, said this is a witch hunt, a terrible drear. They're smearing good chaps, it's a dreadful disgrace. Now let's talk of the boats coming over the place. He'd bluster and banter and change the subject quick to a pint of warm ale or a political trick. But the bribery claims the presenter implored as Nigel was making a beeline for the door. And it's no, nay, never, no, nay, never, no more will I answer that question upon this here floor. I'll talk about fish or the oldie you wore, but what I knew about Nathan, no, never, no more. Oh, the Russians are cunning, their methods are dark, like a bear in the woods or a shark in the park. But to think that old Nige, so savvy and sage, got caught in the glow of a Kremlin-shaped haze. He'd call it all nonsense, a ream owner's lie, while polishing a tankard with a tear in his eye. And it's no, nay, never, no, nay, never, no more will I answer that question upon this here floor. I'll talk about fish or the oldie you wore, but what I knew about Nathan, no, never, no more. So if you see Nigel, just give him a cheer, but don't ask about Nathan, my dear. He'll just grab his pint and his cigarette stash and go off to count more of his cash. Yes, he'll go off to count more of his cash. Hey!